Everybody, video here for you today. I was looking into some things last night and I came across a pic that just kind of confused me. It has to do with the Giza necropolis here. I'm going to be making a video on the Great Pyramid down the line, probably in the next month. Came across a pic that is just a little confusing to me. Now, most of us are familiar with the Sphinx and what it's called the Sphinx Temple. There's a original name for it in the ancient text. Here is the Valley Temple right next to it. This pic was taken in about 1850, 1860, during the earliest period of photographs or photography. It was taken right down here somewhere, and it depicts this area right in here by the Valley Temple, maybe the Valley Temple roof, if it had one on at one time. But let's go look at that pic. It's very interesting. Here's an article from last fall: Photography's Potential as Art and Science in Documenting Ancient Egypt. Signs and Wonders. The photographs of John Beasley Greene features photographs that focus on ancient monuments and landscapes in Egypt and Algeria from the 1850s. These are some of the earliest pics we have of the Giza Plateau. And he took a photograph of some excavation going on by the Sphinx I found very interesting. Now here is a look from 170 years ago. We got the angle of the Sphinx head right here, so we know this is from the Valley Temple. It appears there's a flag in the Sphinx head right there. That's interesting. But we go down here, and this is totally unlike we see the Valley Temple today. This must have been buried by stonework on top of it, and then centuries of sand deposited on top of here. Who knows how long this has been buried? How do you account for all the erosion on the Sphinx in the enclosure if it's been buried in sand for 2/3 of the time we have known it to exist? Here we are looking out from the Sphinx and the Valley Temple, as they are called. This would have been all water out here when these were constructed. You notice the massive paving stones that these constructions are built on top of. Same as the pyramids up on the plateau. But the only thing I can think of is we are looking at this area right in here. Different type of stonework. Very ancient. Looks like stuff you would find in Peru. But this pic here may be the more obvious spot for this location right here. You see it's buried down in the ground, and there is stonework on top of this whole area here. Looks nothing like we see it today, but maybe the most obvious spot is this area right up here. Appears to have some large stones on top of it, and that could be what we are seeing right in this area, but I'm just not sure. Could stuff be buried here that goes down beneath the Sphinx? That is totally possible. That is just a weird look at the Valley Temple coming from about 175 years ago off the right front of the Sphinx. It's just very confusing to me. This could be the same thing we were looking at on Google Earth over here, except there was massive stones on top of this back 170 years ago, if that's indeed what we are looking at. When I see a pic of the Giza Plateau, I can usually tell what I'm looking at. This one obviously has to be the Valley Temple, but in a much different state than we see it today. Was there large limestone blocks covering all the granite here at one time on top? I really wonder about that. Was there a roof to the Valley Temple? Some people have speculated they were doing astronomical observations of the sun from on top of the Valley Temple. I did this video, I think about a year ago. If you were standing on top of the Valley Temple, this is the line that would have gone over Khentkawes structure. That is the name of it here. That's how it is known, but I think it's an original structure on the Giza Plateau. So if you're standing on top of the Valley Temple, this is where the sun would have set yesterday on the winter solstice in perfect alignment with Khentkawes' tomb. So the day the sun dies, that alignment is perfect. So that tells me Khentkawes' tomb was most likely the place they did mummification a long time ago on the Giza Plateau. A little bit of the confusion went away when I reviewed this video talk I did with Ben at UnchartedX. We did this about a year ago, Mysteries of the Sphinx and Temples. He has a pretty good grasp of what used to be here, so I'm just going to play a couple-minute clip from this video, and I'm looking forward to Ben and other people's videos from their recent tour in Egypt.
Objects. So if I get right into the machining and a lot of my topics and videos, and he talks about these very fine lines and machining marks in a bunch of the fragments and the pieces that they found in here. Of course, there's nothing left here right now, but a lot of this, there was an awful lot of broken material and broken bits and pieces found in this temple by a number of explorers. In fact,
Uh-huh.
Mariette, I think I pinned this on Howard Weiss at one point, but Mariette blew up several of these of those columns that we saw. It's there's actually a little quote from it here. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, 6 of these beams. This is quoting Petrie one more time as we see this wall here. Quote,
Wow.
six of these beams, or a third of the whole, are now missing. The Arabs say that they were found lying dislodged in the temple, and that Mariette, when clearing up the place to exhibit, had them blasted to pieces by soldiers. And he actually wasn't sure this was true, but he had it confirmed later on, and it seems to be accurate that Mariette did indeed blast these to pieces. This here I find particularly interesting, these couple of doorways. Let me just back that up for a second. So as you walk up, this is one other thing I wanted to mention about the temple, is that this is only the lower level of what was a at least two-leveled structure. This was all covered. It all had a roof, and all of that area inside with the Osirion-looking space had a roof, and then there was supposedly another level on top of that was most likely open to the sky. But it may have been 40 or 50 feet high in originality, because these passageways supposedly lead up to that second level, which is now all gone. It's all been quarried.
Right. There has been a lot of destruction in Giza. We're pretty amazed by what's still here, but really it's probably just a fragment or just a remnant or whatever they cannot haul away.
Yeah.
And that's why we don't have a lot of solid answers, because really we just have huge blocks, and so much of the smaller stuff is gone.
Yeah.
That kind of would have given us good clues.
There's a few things in these doorways. So these are interesting little doorways. They're always shut. I don't know anybody that's been able to get in here, but one thing you may notice is that the change in color of the stone. That's because it's not granite in here. There is a mixture of granite, and this is alabaster, or it's like crystallized limestone that comes off in sheets. It forms, it's essentially crystal. But all of these blocks in here are alabaster, which is just sort of astonishing to see. And you can tell the difference when you pan up and you see that, okay, the block on top is granite. You get that regular color of granite, but the most of the massive blocks that form this actual passageway are alabaster.
I just thought I'd do this today. Gives you a totally different perspective of the Giza Plateau. When things were buried, the Valley Temple seemed to be way underground and way under some stonework here. 170 years ago, makes you wonder about the Osirion. This is Brien Foerster's website. And people talk about the Osirion and the Valley Temple being made up kind of the same stonework, and this being way down in the ground. So maybe this kind of gives us a hint of what this place looked like in antiquity, maybe the Osirion when it was discovered. I will leave a link to this story on Brian's website, but the Osirion here was discovered, buried in the ground by who? King Seti, about 3,300 years ago. This certainly gives you a different perspective of the Valley Temple today. Open to the sky. How did this look when it was originally constructed? We have no clue. This pic from 170 years ago, well, I'll give you some idea how it looked when it was uncovered. Here's the way the Valley Temple looks today. Here is a look 170 years ago. Much different perspective. It looked a lot different than it does today. That is obvious. Just thought I'd do this. Very interesting look at the way things used to look on the Giza Plateau. There is an overhead look at the Valley Temple today. Seems it was covered by stonework, probably had a roof, covered by thousands of years of sand from the desert. Hope you thought that was cool, and you all have a very nice day.